the real-life story of the SlenderMan Murders. In a chilling incident that shook the community of Waukesha, Wisconsin back in May 2014, the tranquil woods became the scene of a harrowing crime. Two 12-year-old girls lured their friend into the forest depths, where they mercilessly stabbed her a shocking 19 times. What emerged from this nightmare was a disturbing revelation. The girls attributed their heinous actions to an internet meme known as SlenderMan. It wasn't the influence of a violent video game, a macabre film, or a dark television series. Instead, it was the sinister allure of an online phenomenon that drove these young minds to commit such a gruesome act. From its humble beginnings, the myth of SlenderMan grew exponentially, fueled by fan fiction and eerie visual art depicting the enigmatic figure. For these two impressionable 12-year-olds, SlenderMan wasn't just a fictional character. He was a malevolent force that they believed to be real. Whether their descent into darkness stemmed from an innocent fascination that spiraled into a nightmare, or from underlying mental health issues, the consequences were dire. Charged with first-degree attempted homicide, these young girls faced a judicial system grappling with the complexities of their actions. Now, 4 years later, the final chapter of this tragic saga has unfolded. The court has rendered its verdict, sentencing the perpetrators to 25 years and 40 years in a mental institution, respectively. Yet, even as justice is served, the haunting specter of SlenderMan lingers, serving as a stark reminder of the dangers that lurk within the labyrinthine corridors of the internet and the fragile boundaries between fiction and reality.
Well, we have reason to believe that he's a maniac.
I don't accept the whole situation.
Sentence Stephen Bundy to die in the electric chair.
On the fateful night of May 30th, 2014, Morgan Geyser and her accomplice, Anissa Weier, both age 12, extended an invitation to their friend Peyton Leutner, also 12, for a sleepover. Little did Peyton know this was a calculated ploy to lure her into the clutches of horror. According to the sinister details outlined in the criminal complaint, the girls' agenda was to prove the existence of SlenderMan by taking Peyton's life. Unable to execute their macabre plan that night, the following day dawned with ominous intent as they ventured into the woods under the guise of a harmless game of hide-and-seek. It was here that the dark forces of delusion and malice took hold. Subduing their unsuspecting friend, they passed a knife between them, each hesitating to be the first to plunge it into Peyton's flesh. Eventually, the dam of hesitation broke, unleashing a frenzied onslaught of violence that left Peyton with a staggering 19 stab wounds, narrowly avoiding fatal arteries. Authorities suspect Morgan Geyser as the primary assailant, with Anissa Weier egging her on from the sidelines. Deceiving their wounded victim with false promises of aid, the two perpetrators callously abandoned Peyton and embarked on a surreal odyssey toward Nicollet National Forest, where they believed SlenderMan awaited them. Their twisted minds convinced that by committing this heinous act, they would earn the favor of their fictional idol and be welcomed into his mansion. Miraculously, Peyton Leutner summoned an astonishing display of courage, dragging her battered body out of the woods and onto a nearby road, driven by an unwavering will to survive. In the aftermath, she uttered words that echoed the resilience of the human spirit. "I wanted to live." Discovered by a passing cyclist, she was swiftly transported to the hospital, where skilled surgeons fought to save her life. Meanwhile, Geyser and Weier were apprehended hours later, their backpacks stained with the evidence of their barbaric deed, a bloodied kitchen knife. In their disturbing confession, Morgan Geyser and Anissa Weier revealed where they were traveling: Slender Mansion, nestled deep within the shadows of Nicollet National Forest. a daunting 200 miles from the scene of their capture. Despite everything she had been through, Peyton Leutner emerged from the depths of her trauma, leaving the hospital a mere 7 days after the horrific attack. Displaying an indomitable spirit, she bravely returned to school in September of 2014, a testament to her resilience in the face of unimaginable adversity. As she resumed her studies, the community rallied around her, offering support and solidarity in their journey toward healing and recovery. During the interrogation process, conducted without the presence of legal guardians or counsel, Geyser exhibited a disturbing lack of empathy, while Wire struggled with the weight of the guilt for her role in the stabbing of Leutner. Despite these conflicting emotions, both steadfastly maintained that their heinous assault was a necessary sacrifice to appease the mythical SlenderMan. The motive behind the brutal attack carried out by Morgan Geyser and Anissa Weier took a disturbing turn, as it was linked to the eerie lore of SlenderMan, a fictional character that emerged from the depths of internet culture in 2009. Originating as an internet meme, SlenderMan quickly became the stuff of nightmares, portrayed as an unnaturally tall figure with a featureless face, clad in a menacing black suit. A quintessential boogeyman for the digital age, preying on children through stalking and abduction. Some depictions even included tentacles sprouting from his back, adding to his otherworldly aura. In the twisted lore surrounding SlenderMan, he was said to induce amnesia, coughing fits, and paranoid behavior in his unfortunate victims, often lurking in the shadows of dense forests. Initially conceived in the internet forum Something Awful during a Photoshop competition, SlenderMan was the brainchild of a user known only as Victor Surge, who submitted chilling black and white images featuring the ominous figure lurking in the background. Accompanied by fabricated eyewitness accounts of child abductions, these images captivated online audiences, swiftly going viral and spawning a plethora of fan art, fiction, and even video games featuring the sinister character. With no historical roots to bind its narrative, SlenderMan offered writers and creators unparalleled freedom to mold and manipulate its appearance, actions, and motives to suit their storytelling needs. This limitless creative canvas fueled its meteoric rise to prominence, allowing the imagination to run wild and conjure endless iterations of terror. From the realms of online written stories to video games like Minecraft and dedicated SlenderMan titles, the insidious influence of SlenderMan transcended digital boundaries, permeating popular culture with its malevolent presence. As a symbol of unchecked imagination and the blurred lines between fantasy and truth, SlenderMan had taken root in their impressionable teens' psyches. Morgan Geyser and Anissa Weier, both 12 years old at the time, became ensnared in the twisted fantasy of SlenderMan, believing that by committing murder, they would become his proxies and gain entry into his hidden mansion. This belief, fueled by months of planning and collaboration, culminated in a horrific act of violence against their friend, Peyton Leutner. The girls' immersion in the SlenderMan mythos was bolstered by their mutual fascination, amplifying the delusion and escalating their belief in the fictional character's power. Their disturbing intent to take a life in exchange for recognition and rewards from SlenderMan underscores the profound impact of internet culture on youthful perceptions of reality. Most alarming is the revelation that the attack was not a spontaneous outburst, but a meticulously planned assault that had been brewing for months. Notes detailing their sinister intentions were discovered in the girls' bedrooms, highlighting the calculated nature of their actions. The chilling dichotomy of their inner thoughts, the bad part of me wanted her to die, the good part of me wanted her to live, reflects the internal struggle that preceded their heinous deeds. Sadly, the SlenderMan myth has left a trail of destruction behind this case. Another teenager, influenced by the character, perpetrated violence against her own mother. Dressed in black and wearing a mask, the 13-year-old launched a knife attack, resulting in her confinement to a juvenile detention center. With a history of mental health issues and a penchant for horror fanfiction, she too fell prey to the allure of SlenderMan, illustrating the grave consequences of unchecked obsessions with fictional entities. During the course of the police investigation and subsequent psychiatric evaluations leading up to trial, a chilling portrait of Morgan Geyser's mental state emerged. From early childhood, she had been plagued by vivid visual and auditory hallucinations, including apparitions she perceived as ghosts, walls dripping with color, and imaginary companions named Maggie and Sev. Among these hallucinations was a recurring figure she named It, a spectral presence resembling smoke and ink that she often saw lurking in mirrors or skulking around corners. Following her arrest, Morgan's descent into psychosis became increasingly evident. Correctional officers noted her erratic behavior, which included talking to herself, adopting feline mannerisms, and even keeping ants as pets. Her mother, Angie Geyser, described her as floridly psychotic, painting a stark picture of her daughter's deteriorating mental state. Morgan claimed to have ongoing conversations with fictional characters such as SlenderMan and Severus Snape, further blurring the already tenuous line between reality and fantasy. In the fall of 2014, Morgan was transferred to the Winnebago Health Institute for evaluation to determine her competency to stand trial. It was there on October 22, 2014, that she received a diagnosis of early-onset child schizophrenia, a devastating revelation that shed light on the underlying factors driving her to descent into madness. In retrospect, her mother, Angie Geyser, reflected on the family's shock and the hidden nature of Morgan's symptoms, revealing a chilling reality where hallucinations became her daughter's confidants. Despite the diagnosis, Morgan's treatment for schizophrenia remained inadequate for 19 months, exacerbating her episodic lapses into psychosis and hindering her ability to distinguish delusion from reality. It wasn't until December 2015 that she began a consistent regimen of antipsychotic medication, which finally provided some semblance of clarity and enabled her to comprehend the gravity of her actions. However, even with proper medication, the stressors of confinement and incarceration took a toll on her fragile mental state, leading to further deterioration. Throughout her trial, Morgan remained committed to the Winnebago Mental Health Institute, where she became the youngest patient under their care. The understanding of fiction versus reality in child stories is a nuanced process that evolves as they grow and learn. While it may seem intuitive for 12-year-olds to discern between fictional characters like SlenderMan and real-life figures, research reveals the complexity of this cognitive development and how it's influenced by life experiences. A study published in Cognitive Science in 2014 examined the understanding of leading characters in various types of stories among 5 to 6-year-old children. They found that children often determine the reality of a character based on the narrative context of the story. For instance, those exposed to religious teachings were more likely to believe characters in religious stories were real, while children with no such exposure tended to view them as fictional. Similarly, children differentiated between real and fictional characters based on the plausibility of the story's events and settings. In the case of SlenderMan narratives, despite the fantastical elements, the character is often depicted in familiar settings like forests and abandoned buildings, engaging activities that mirror real-world fears such as kidnapping and terrorizing. This blurring of fantasy and reality can confuse young minds, especially when aspects of the story are validated by adults. Children may be more inclined to believe in the reality of a character if adults confirm elements of the story, exasperating confusion between knowing a tall tale from macabre truth for disturbed young minds. For Morgan Geyser and Anissa Weier, both 12 years old at the time, their descent into violence was intertwined with a complex web of delusions and deteriorating mental health. Anissa Weier, on the other hand, was diagnosed with shared delusional belief, a condition where two people with a close relationship share the same delusional belief and can feed off each other. In such cases, separation also leads to a diminishment of shared beliefs, as seen with Enisa's gradual distancing from the primary case. Nevertheless, psychiatrists advocate for continued support and treatment for her as well. In light of the severity of their actions, both Wire and Geyser found themselves transferred out of juvenile court for trial as adults. Wire, in 2017, admitted to guilt to being involved in attempted second-degree homicide, although a subsequent jury ruling deemed her not guilty by mental disease or defect. Geyser, on the other hand, opted for a plea deal, which spared her from trial, contingent upon her guilty plea and submission to psychiatric evaluations to determine her commitment duration to a forensic psychiatric hospital. Following this, Geyser's plea of guilt was coupled with the diagnosis of schizophrenia by court-appointed psychiatrists, resulting in a verdict of not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect.
The final diagnoses, both in the psychological report and in my report, are schizophrenia, unspecified.
The sentencing outcomes diverged for the two individuals. Wire received a 25-year-to-life sentence, featuring a mandatory 3-year confinement and involuntary treatment in a state forensic psychiatric institution. Following this initial period, she will be subject to communal supervision until reaching the age of 37. In contrast, Geyser faced the harsher penalty, a 40-year-to-life sentence. This sentence also mandates a minimum 3-year confinement period, along with involuntary treatment in a state forensic psychiatric facility, until either symptom resolution or reaching the age of 53, whichever comes first. If released, Geyser will remain under communal supervision, subject to periodic evaluations to gauge the necessity for reinstatement and/or additional treatment as dictated by the imposed sentence. In 2020, an appeals court dismissed Geyser's plea for retrial as a juvenile. Her legal counsel contended that she should have faced charges of attempted second-degree intentional homicide rather than first-degree, also citing the absence of Miranda rights during initial questioning by investigators. Subsequently, her attorney appealed to the Supreme Court of Wisconsin, seeking a review of the ruling. However, in early 2021, the Wisconsin Supreme Court opted against hearing the appeal. At a hearing held on March 10, 2021, a 19-year-old Wire expressed remorse, conveying her deep regret for the anguish caused not only to Lutner, but also to her community. She acknowledged the severity of her actions in 2014, but emphasized her journey towards self-forgiveness through extensive therapy. Subsequently, on July 1, 2021, Waukesha County Judge Michael Boren sentenced Wire's release from the Winnebago Mental Health Institute, instructing state officials to formulate a conditional release plan within 60 days. Moreover, Wire was to be overseen by Wisconsin Department of Health Services case managers until the age of 37, coinciding with the length of her commitment. Wire's release on September 13, 2021, came with stringent conditions, including 24-hour GPS monitoring, mandating prior approval for departures from Waukesha County. However, on September 11, 2023, the GPS monitoring requirement was rescinded. Additionally, her internet usage is monitored and restricted, with a complete prohibition on social media use. Court-mandated psychiatric medication is obligatory, and she is escorted to regular counseling sessions by a designated caseworker. Furthermore, she is obligated to reside with her father under court supervision. In January 2024, Geyser petitioned the court for release, retracting a similar petition filed in 2022, just 2 months after submission. 2 psychologists testified in court recently, in April 2024, regarding the petition for release. One of the psychologists highlighted a notable development in the case: Geyser's assertion that she has always been feigning psychiatric symptoms, a claim inconsistent with years of professional observation and treatment. Brooke Lundbaum, who has been involved in Geyser's case since 2014, expressed skepticism, remarking that such a revelation would be remarkable and callous. If the person is not able to have insight into their mental health condition, the potential warning signs, the triggers that could cause decline, have insight into the kinds of treatment that may be beneficial, it raises a lot of concerns about being discharged, Lundholm testified. A second physiologist, Dr. Deborah Collins, also testified. It's my opinion to a reasonable degree of professional certainty that she currently presents a significant risk of bodily harm to herself or others if conditionally released, she said. Subsequently, the judge denied the request for release, presumably due to the psychologist's testimony, underscoring how significant concerns regarding Geyser's mental health still remain. On October 24, 2019, Peyton Leutner, then 17 years old and the survivor of the horrific incident, publicly shared her experience for the first time on ABC's 2020. Speaking about her scars, she expressed minimal concern, stating, "I don't think much of them. They will probably go away and fade eventually." Leutner recounted her initial acquaintance with Geyser in 4th grade, highlighting her intention to alleviate Geyser's solitude by befriending her. She also noted Wyer's introduction by Geyser and how Wyer had exhibited jealousy towards their friendship. When questioned about her hypothetical encounter with Geyser in the future, Leutner revealed that she would express gratitude, citing the attack as the catalyst for her decision to pursue a career in medicine. While some point fingers at the internet or the SlenderMan myth itself for influencing the girls' actions, the heart of the matter lies in their individual delusions, fueled by escalating mental health issues. As the dust settles on this tragic chapter, the SlenderMan stabbing serves as a stark reminder of the intersection between mental illness and the modern age, where fiction blurs with reality, and the consequences are devastatingly real.
The court easily finds that this is a violent, premeditated, personal offense. There was a conscious decision made at the time of the offense to let the victim die. They told PL that they would leave to get her help. They did leave, and they left walking to the Nicolay National Forest to locate the SlenderMan mansion and then meet up with SlenderMan. This is charged as an attempted murder, but you have to keep in mind for both defendants that this was, in fact, this was an effort to kill someone. Not a mistake by hitting him too hard, not a mistake by pushing him too hard.